Well, hello, welcome to this video. So, it is now Tuesday. So 3 days since our race. I don't normally don't get time really at the track to be able to do these voiceovers, so I've been doing them after. But nonetheless, this is the update on how the race actually went. So, in practice, the car felt pretty good. We were relatively quick. We thought we were a little quicker than what the timesheet showed, but we are starting to get this car dialed in, which is extremely nice. The changes that we made leading into that race, leading into the day, worked perfectly. Actually, a little too good because we actually were in a four-wheel slide for most of the day, but I'd rather that over being super tight because I can generally control a four-wheel slide. So we dealt with that in practice as well, just the four-wheel slide, but there's no footage unfortunately because it was a rush day with them wanting to rush us out onto the track so that they could get all the practice sessions done as quickly as possible for the kids' ride night. So now into the first feature. We started, I believe it was 8th, if I recall correctly. And the car felt pretty good. Still had that bit of the slidey issue in the corner, or especially on entry with I hit the brakes and go into a four-wheel slide, but probably cost us a little bit of time overall. Not probably all that much. That could have been setup issue, it could also be the tires. They're starting to wear out, but since I still haven't got new tires on her. Besides that, there was 2 cautions in the first feature. The first yellow, if I recall, came out. Yes, it was the first yellow came out when about lap 15, I think it was, somewhere around there. When the 33 and 46 got together entering turn 1. You'll have a common theme with the 33 car here in this video especially, but it's been a common theme all year long, and some of the drivers are getting a little bit annoyed with them because he does drive over his head quite a bit, and it sounds like that's what happened again in this instance, where he basically went through the grass and took out the 46 as they were lapping the car, or just after they were finishing lapping the car, and the lapper ended up getting involved as well. We were causing fairly significant damage to the 46. But the second yellow came out when, from my viewpoint anyway, it looked like my teammate did get a little loose coming off the corner. From what I heard, Gilmore got him loose, which is the 33's driver, and then just drove right through the side of him. It's, like I said, he's a common demon. That seems to be his only way to go past cars is to drive through them. Or, basically, they have to give him a real wide berth, which they'll probably see as long as there is footage. How wide of a berth I actually would give him because of knowing that about him. We basically hung out 8th for most of the feature and moved up with those 2 incidents. We ended up, like I said, I think we ended up 5th overall, as the 33 did get us 2 laps to go for a second time coming back through the pack. So that's how the first feature went. The second feature, this will bring up probably a lot of questions for us, which I'll go over our decision in a second here. But the second feature, we did start pole with all the chaos from the first feature before us, mostly the hobby cars, so vintage modifieds, and the Ontario Ontario modifieds, so like the Whelen modifieds and the NASCAR modified cars anyway, that's what they're similar to. They seem to have issues keeping, from the sounds of it, their rear gears together and their engines together, which led to a real messy track for the second feature. And I had the luxury of starting on pole for that. The first attempt at the start, we got into turns 3 and 4. I guess one of the back markers spun in turn 1 and 2, so the yellow came out, causing a full restart. We did lose the lead to the 33, but of course, with it being a full restart, we did get it back. And like I said, the 33 is going to be a common theme. The second restart, he ran me right down the track, even before the green flag, causing me to be right on the flat, because unlike him, I don't want to be making contact with unnecessary contact with cars, and I don't really want to be puncturing a tire before we go racing, because with that first one having the yellow come out before we finished a lap, the race was restarted all over again. So I don't think we actually made full contact at all, but yeah, you ran me right down onto the flat of the track, coming to the green, which I was supposed to be in control of, and caused a lot of wheel spin. He got a lot of wheel spin too. That was also because of the way the track was at that point in the race. So going through 1 and 2, I did give him the bumper, which, as long as I have video footage, you'll see it in the video too, but you can see the mark from him on the front bumper. It's kind of hard to see here on the camera, but that is where I had his rear end lifted up, because I'm a strong believer of race people the way you want to be raced. He wanted to run me down the track even before we were racing, so I returned the favor coming out of 2 and basically ran him up the track. Well, tried to. But I just had no traction at all, and that ended up leading to a self-spin coming out of 4. And just given all the fact that there was no traction, and I was going to have to come from the back again, it was, I didn't see a point in continuing the race, because the payouts weren't worth it, and I did not feel safe on the track with the way it was. That was ultimately our decision. So we did complete the feature. For that fact, we basically, and you can see all the speedy dry still on this tire. So with that, we didn't complete the feature because of that. But we did apologize in our post to our sponsors and hope they understood the fact that my goal is to keep this car in one piece as long as possible to get in as many races this season as possible. I felt at the time of that race that it was not worth being out there on the track, risking the car and risking injury with the way the track was. That was my personal opinion. Others, apparently, from the sounds of it, did start emailing the track after the racing, because the race director did apologize for it, which really I'm not going to fully put the blame on the track. Should we have been racing with the way the track was? No, I don't think so. That's, once again, my opinion. They must have felt the track was good enough to go racing. Obviously, as I've just said, I didn't think it was, but that was two different opinions. They got about 50 emails, the race director said, already, and that was prior to basically the night had just ended when we had a word with him about basically about the 33 car and how he's been driving all year, and really how he's been driving the last few years. So, but he did apologize for the way the track was, but like I said, there's not much the track could have done. The heat really brought up the oil in the track because it was an extremely hot day, and add the humidity in the air and the fact that they actually had equipment malfunction too. The cleanup wasn't the best it could have been. If they would have canceled the event, they would have still been complained about. if they moved it to moved the follow the last features for everybody to the Sunday, which was not an official rain date to begin with, they would have probably had complaints because not everybody could probably have got to that Sunday. So the track was in a no-win situation. I was kind of hoping that they would go with the safety first in mind, but like I said, it ultimately ended up being their decision to put the races on and leave it in the hands of the driver if you feel safe enough to be out on the track to go racing. If not, then you can park your car. That's your choice. And we chose to park the car. We're not in the points. Who's really the hands are forced of was the point, the guys in the points, because they didn't really have much of a choice, because they could have parked their car and lost all those points, or raced it out and at least gained points. I'm glad that from, at least in our group, to my knowledge, there was no other accidents besides the spin on the first start and then my self-spin, which did annoy me a little bit because they didn't even throw the yellow when I was sitting in the middle of the track till the leader, I believe, was going into 3 at that time. So that was my thoughts on the matter. Other drivers have done it in the past, even guys that get paid to race, like Nicky Lauda. And F1 did it back in the 70s, and he was leading the world championship, and on the final race of the season said, after 2 laps, no, the track was too dangerous, I'm not racing, and parked his car. Ended up losing the championship by 1 point. And another guy in NASCAR started hearing voices, and that's when he stopped his car to get out. It wasn't really necessarily a safety concern of his with the track, which ours was in that case. But as I said, everybody's entitled to their own opinions. That was our opinion. Like I said, we want to keep the car in as good a shape as possible. For $48, basically, fourth on back gets $40 at Flamboro. The winner gets $110. It cost me $100 per bumper just for the medal. I didn't deem that worthwhile staying out there and possibly damaging this car further. And truthfully, with the way the track was and how far back we were, I didn't see us getting into the top 3 anyway. As good as this car was running up to that feature, we just had no grip in that feature. So we made the decision that we'd save the car and not risk getting hurt, even though we do understand racing is dangerous. Chances of getting hurt are fairly high. Well, I wouldn't say fairly high, but are there compared to a lot of other sports. But actually, there's probably less injuries in racing, oddly enough, than there is in like hockey or football because of all the safety equipment. And if the car does the job correctly, then most of the force isn't going into the driver. So, but the risk is still there. And the higher risk of possibility of life-altering injuries is there more so in racing than hockey, and football, or American football. But then again, there are the concussion issues, and they're starting to find out a lot of issues with those 2 sports too that were not overly prevalent till a few years ago. So, which is also starting to bring its way into racing too, with the concussions and what kind of damage the brain sustains in the high G impacts, which happens in those sports, but that's the unfortunate thing. We do have a little bit of damage from our feature, the first feature, when we got into the back of our teammate, of all people, at the very start of the race because we missed our braking zone. That ended up being a common theme in that first feature because of us trying to catch up and make up the ground that we had lost on the front runners. But just we're not fully able to. Front bumper's broke more than I thought it was. But outside of that, this car is still in fairly good shape. Like I said, there's a mark on it from, I'm pretty sure, the 33. And there's that. So we are off this next week. I might do a shop video because I have a feeling we're going to be doing a full setup change, which could help us, it could hurt us. It might help us in a way that we'll be getting the setup back towards more of a traditional setup in the car. Because right now I'm pretty sure it's got a reverse wedge setup in it, which I believe is helping lead to our confusion, as well as getting help from guys at the track is harder because a lot of guys don't run that reverse wedge setup. Because I talked to the one guy who won the championship last year, and who drives a Mustang as well, and he had an adjustment to help with the sliding issue after the first feature, and he asked what springs we were running, so I showed him what was written down on the sheet that the guy gave us, one of the setup sheets that came with the car, and as far as I know, that's what the springs and everything were still set to. And he looked at it and basically went, what? The springs are on the wrong corners. The two front springs should be swapped and the two rear springs should be swapped. Which kind of makes sense to me too. And like I said, that would be more of a traditional setup, where you have your heavier springs to the outside of the corner and your softer springs on the inside of the corner, because you want the car to go diving into the corner. Right now, with the way the setup is, it doesn't do that. And I was watching one of the pedal power videos, who unfortunately wasn't at the track. And it looks like our left rear might actually be lifting a little bit, or at least having the weight removed off of it, so the inside rear corner, which on a rear wheel drive, you kind of need weight on your rear wheels, because that's where all your drive is coming from. If you're driving mostly off of your one wheel, it will lead to the loose exit, which is what we've been fighting quite a bit. Outside of that, and then we might do a shop video this weekend, so it'd be out next week. And not this Friday, but obviously, since we're not racing this weekend, but next Friday, we'll have the pre-race video as we get ready for Meet the Drivers Night number 2 at Flamboro Speedway. So we'll be heading back. Apparently, there is going to be a mini stock meeting as well, because the race director is also not pleased with how the racing has been done. Because I guess the 33 was complaining as well about the driving by everyone else. And a bunch of us had a meeting with the race director after racing was done on Saturday about the 33 because of his over driving in our eyes. So, as that, you can't just drive right through guys, and he has a tendency to do that more than just our track knows about it. You go to any track and say that, oh, we got that damage at Flamboro, right away guys assume that it was Gilmore. So, or you mentioned that you got spun by Gilmore at Flamboro, and like, yeah, go figure. It's pretty bad if you got that kind of reputation, but hopefully they'll get things to settle down in the division, because they are starting to gain some cars. A lot of them are slower cars, but they're also newer drivers, so hopefully those newer drivers can be brought up and actually find speed, and we'll stick around Flamboro for a little bit, so then we can continue to run with multi-digit numbers for cars, because right now it's only really 7-car field when we take our car and my buddy takes his car, front runners that are on that will actually normally remain on the lead lap. The others do fall down a lap, but like I said, a lot of them are fairly new drivers, so hopefully they'll find speed and be able to get up into the pack and actually start racing and not being down a lap and not being in the way. But all that comes also down to mentoring, so helping these guys out, as well as getting it so that they're not being run over and getting discouraged out on track for just being out there to drive, being out there trying to race themselves. Like, that's a lot of the reason too why, well, I did the math earlier. I couldn't afford the full season of 20 plus races at Flamboro anyway, even without damage. I have calculated it out that I might be able to push the 13, and I think I said that in an earlier video. But outside of that, I don't mind Flamboro. I don't like the officiating at times. I don't like how rush they are quite a bit compared to other tracks especially. But that's basically my home track, and with where my buddies are located, the 2 guys that we now race with, that's the closest track to them. I'm basically central. Takes me about an hour to get down to that track. Takes me about an hour to get up to Sable, which doesn't have many stocks all the time. It takes me, I think, an hour to get to Flamboro. Sunset, which is actually probably one of the more well-known Ontario racetracks, takes me about an hour and a half, depending on traffic, to get out to it, and which way my GPS takes me. And the closest track is probably about half hour to 45 minutes from me, which is full throttle, so, which is probably one of the smallest tracks in Ontario. But outside of that, hopefully you enjoyed this video. Hopefully you're enjoying the content so far. I haven't really seen many comments, or at least haven't got notified about comments. So if there are comments to help us out with like camera angles or stuff that you guys want to know about, let us know. I'll gladly answer them, both through the comment section and as well as on the video, especially if it's a common one. I'm always looking for advice anyway. Like, this channel's fairly new. It's actually, the channel itself is fairly old, but me doing this is new. I try to take inspiration from Landon Huffman down in the US with his late model videos, but like I said, I can't really do as much at the track because I do get some help from my buddies with running this car, but for the most part, a lot of the work is done by myself. A lot of the work in the shop is done by myself. And at the track, if they're needing to work on their car, well, then I'm stuck working on my car by myself. So it's hard for me to do videos, make sure all the cameras are working and everything else. So I'm hoping that we got some new angles, as we did. Back around. Put a new camera mount, which you probably would have already seen by now if there is footage. Right up here, just above the center of the name. Figure that will actually help give a better angle outside of the car as opposed to that one that's inside the car. And then, of course, my rear bumper camera. But that one there shouldn't be as glaring, I hope. I think a lot of the glare from that inside camera is probably from this windshield, which, as you can see, it's actually hard to see, is all pitted now because of all the speedy dry. And actually, you can see some of the dust right there. That's all the speedy dry that was on the track. That ends up on the front end of this car. See the bottom grill here alone of how dirty that track was. But like I said, can't really blame the track crew. They did what they could with what they were given. So I'm not mad at anybody. It's just our decision was it wasn't worth risking the car to race as it was right now. So if you're liking the content, please subscribe. And don't forget to like this video too, as it will help us out in the long run. As I'm not sure exactly how the YouTube algorithm works, but I think the more likes a video gets, the more prone to being recommended to others that are like watching racing videos, would recommend it to them. So I believe that's how it works anyway. But nonetheless, it helps us out. It helps let YouTube know. It also helps show any potential sponsors that want to come on board the video, on board the race car, that people are watching this people are watching the content and liking it. So it gives them a reason to come and help us out on board, which gives us more money ideally to continue to actually get the car out more often and do more racing and hopefully be more competitive, because tires and everything does cost quite a bit. I think a set of tires is about $800 to $1,000 depending on where I buy them. Fuel for this thing in the truck every race day is about $150. So right there, that just shows you, right, and I've already told you, we basically take home most times $80. So we've used up $150 even before getting into the pits and getting out on track. So that also dealt with a lot of the decision just to park the car, keep it in one piece, have it ready to go for the next races, and hopefully we can put on a show again for the fans and put a show on for you guys. So that's it. That's a little bit of a longer video than what I had planned, but as I said, next week we'll probably have just a garage video of doing the changeover, trying to fix up the nose. I think we have to pull off the nose and do the air dam again because it kind of got bent down. So I'll probably have a video out on that. My buddy's gonna, I believe, come up on Sunday to help out. And then next Friday, we'll have another video for the pre-race update. And then, of course, the week following the race will be, hopefully, our editor will be able to get back to being able to do the editing of the videos. But until then, we'll see you in the next video. Bye.